Yo, what's up guys, it's the Anime Titan here, back at it again with another What If, and today I am doing What If Deku Had Nanotechnology, part 5. So, I do apologize for it cutting off abruptly last time. I ended up, well, I'm just gonna give it to you straight. My phone shut down. Yep. But that doesn't matter now, because I'm back, and I'm planning on, I've decided that, unfortunately, I will not be able to release a bunch of videos at one go. So I'm gonna be doing 3 a week. 3 Deku, 3 Naruto. 3 Deku, 3 Naruto. Because I do believe that would work best, for the time being anyways. So every week you can either expect 3 Naruto or 3 Deku, depending on which ones are still fresh and which ones have a burning bright idea. Sometimes I'll switch it up and have 2 Deku, 1 Naruto, 2 Naruto, 1 Deku, you know, that kind of jazz. But anyway, let's jump back into the video. So last time we left off was when Deku was just about to collide with a Nomu. Deku's nanotechnology suit had switched over. This time, it was red. The suit itself, I'll show you in just a sec. So basically, the suit itself would be shifting from the vehicle type all the way over to the, as you can see over here, this is what I call the quirk cancelling type. So this is basically how Deku's nano suit will look. This here will be the vehicle type, well, that's just White Cat, and this is basically just the doper version of the suit. White Tiger, that's the suit from the animated series on XD, and yeah, basically this is how we're going to be rolling. So anyway, Deku would be, his suit would switch to the quirk cancelling type, as he would go into a fist-to-fist brawl with the Nomu. The Nomu would have the slight edge at first, but then the nanotechnology suit would start breaking off and landing on the Nomu, with the nanotechnology putting into immediate effect, cancelling out only a single one of its quirks, seeing as the nanotechnology suit can only cancel out one at a time. And the quirk that he happened to cancel out was the shock absorption. So Deku would have noticed that the Nomu isn't getting any weaker, which led him to the conclusion that he had multiple quirks. But this didn't deter Deku. He jumped back as he quickly told Raven to grab the rest, take Maneda, Suyu, and Aizawa and get out of here. Ida would have still, everybody would still have gotten in canon, and Ida would still have slipped away. But this time, Deku would be going for head-to-head with a Nomu. He would have gone into an all-out brawl with the suit's systems, telling him that, yeah, he is critically low on power. He should have charged beforehand. Deku, however, would tell the suit, will ignore the suit's warnings and keep pushing on the pushing the Nomu. Deku and the Nomu would be going fist-to-fist, with the suit using its energy to keep up with the Nomu's speed, but not being able to keep up with its strength. Izuku would mostly rely on speed, so he would be maneuvering around the Nomu, and he'd start beating down on it. And do note, the shock absorption quirk was cancelled out. So the Nomu, he's feeling the hits. He's feeling every single one of Deku's punches, which I'm going to tell you is infused with the electroshock from the watch. So Deku would be landing hits on the Nomu where the Nomu would try, but Deku would quickly, avoid the punch. This is when the students would yell at Izuku to get out of there, as Izuku would tell them that he can't, because if he does, this thing's going to chase after him. So Izuku would continue fighting, but every single punch he lands, parts of his nanotechnology suit would be, basically flung off. Whenever Deku would punch the Nomu fist to fist, the arm that Deku had used to punch, the nanotechnology on that arm would completely be sent off flying. It would take it a while to regroup, but Deku would not have enough time for it to regroup properly. So he'd constantly, hang on guys, just gotta do something real quick. So he'd be punching and blocking the Nomu's attacks, but Raven would see that Izuku's in massive trouble and that he can't keep this up. So she would quickly pop in and she would start helping Izuku fight the Nomu, using some of her spells to smack the Nomu Basically, there are times when she'd levitate the Nomu and have Izuku get in punches, but the Nomu would wriggle free of her grasping as she's not in full well concentration trying to just defeat the Nomu. She's actually trying to protect Izuku at the same time. So the Nomu would break free, and he'd go back on the offensive with Izuku. Raven would try to block Izuku with her shields every now and then, but it really wouldn't really work, seeing as the Nomu could, not easily, but he could shatter the shield. The Nomu's, the nanotech on the Nomu would keep doing its job, but it would be much harder for Izuku, seeing as the Nomu is now just punching harder and harder and faster and faster. This is when Izuku would decide that he can't hold back any longer, as he would quickly throw out a pod of nanotechnology, which would then basically cover the already originating suit, causing Izuku's suit to bulk up much more. Basically, you know the Hulkbuster armor from Iron Man when Iron Man fought the Hulk? Yes, that is this, but made out completely and utterly out of nanotechnology. It will wrap around the existing suit as Izuku would. This is, mind you, this Hulkbuster nanotechnology suit is still completely experimental, which means it's extremely volatile. Izuku would be going head to head with the Nomu now, catching its fists and kicking it around. Basically like an All Might and the Nomu brawl. With one key difference. The Nomu is actually feeling the hits. Izuku would be beating on the Nomu with the Nomu returning punches, blocking and kicking. Izuku doing the same. The two would be going at it for at least 10 minutes before Izuku's suit would quickly start overheating. Izuku could feel the heat radiating and his originating suit would try to cool him down. But the external suit is heating up far too quickly for Izuku's originating suit to keep up. But Izuku wouldn't stop. He'd keep going. He'd push the Nomu further and further. He'd keep punching and punching and punching and punching, eventually breaking the Nomu's guard. The fight's gone on for at least 15 minutes now. As Izuku wouldn't stop. He broke the Nomu's guard already. Now it's time to finish this. He'd be punching with his increasingly warm nanotechnology suit as it would heat up even further, causing Izuku to feel even more intense burns. Izuku wouldn't stop there though. He'd keep punching and punching and punching and punching at the Nomu, causing severe burns on the Nomu, but would eventually just regenerate. Izuku wouldn't stop, but he would keep going and going until the suit can't hold out anymore. With the final punch Izuku launches, the suit's arm falls apart. And then Nomu takes this opportunity as he punches Izuku straight in the chest. The rest of the suit falls apart, with Izuku just falling out in his originating small suit. Izuku knows he has no more tricks up his sleeve anymore, but he doesn't stop there. He would run straight back at the Nomu as he'd continue punching with his smaller suit, it giving him at least a 10 times strength boost. Izuku would have been punching and punching at the Nomu, dodging most of his attacks, being more nimble and lighter than the Nomu. The Nomu would punch directly at the ground, but Izuku would flip onto his arm and he'd deliver a devastating booster-enhanced kick to the Nomu's head. This would have fractured Izuku's bone, but he wouldn't stop. He'd keep running back at the Nomu as he'd kick it again. He'd punch it in the stomach with the Nomu bending over. Izuku would then deliver a devastating knee to its head. The Nomu would fall over backwards, with Izuku landing on his feet clutching the knee that he used to hit the Nomu. The Nomu would then slowly get up again as it actually was dizzy now. The shock absorption is still being cancelled. But that's when it happens. The nanotechnology, it stopped working. The Nomu's shock absorption, it's back. Izuku would then charge in the Nomu, but it doesn't seem like his punches are doing anything anymore. That's when he realizes the nanotechnology lost power. It's useless now. That the Nomu would now start throwing a flurry of punches at Izuku, faster and faster than the last. Izuku would barely be able to dodge, and he would get in 1 or 2 solid hits every 10 punches the Nomu throws, but it wouldn't work. The Nomu's shock absorption is far too much. As he would punch Izuku, shattering the torso, well, not shattering, basically just dispersing the nanotechnology on Izuku's torso. Izuku's mask would quickly flaunt down to the torso, covering it with a very thin layer of nanotechnology. As Izuku would charge back in at the Nomu, he would be trying his best as he'd punch and punch and punch, but nothing would be working, as the Nomu would deliver one final punch, sending Izuku straight into the mountainside. The nanotechnology had quickly reverted itself to Izuku's back to protect him. It had taken most of the damage, but Izuku's nanotechnology suit was inactive. This is when, out of nowhere, the door would be flung off of its hinges as All Might would come in saying, "I am here." He was no longer wearing a smile. He was angry, really angry, and everybody feared for this. He would rip off his tie as he jumped down the stairs. He would charge straight at the Nomu, punching it, delivering an extremely devastating punch. Izuku's punches and hits from earlier had still had an effect on the Nomu. It was moving slower, much slower than it originally did, meaning All Might didn't have to punch as fast, and he didn't have to use up as much energy. All Might would be barreling down on the Nomu, or the Nomu trying to do the same, but All Might would have been landing 20 punches for every 10 that the Nomu hit. As All Might would quickly, and I mean really quickly, he would burn and punch through the Nomu, as he'd send him skyrocketing through the USJ with one final punch. He'd look at Tomura Shigaraki and tell him, "Back away from my students." Tomura would have been extremely pissed at this. He would as well have been nervous, as he'd say, "Kurogiri, get us out of here." As Kurogiri told him that they still have one final trick up their sleeve. Tomura would have asked, "What do you mean, Kurogiri?" As Kurogiri would have said, "Master, I will show you." As he would open a portal beneath Deku, as Deku would fall straight in front of Shigaraki. Shigaraki would walk towards the child as he'd tell as Kurogiri would tell Shigaraki that they could use this boy. He could be helpful to their cause. As Shigaraki would have been extremely happy hearing this, that this mission might not have been a complete failure. But as Shigaraki would go to pick up Izuku, a bullet would pierce through his hand. He would look and see Snipe. Snipe would then fire off multiple more rounds, impaling Shigaraki in multiple parts of his body. Kurogiri would have seen this as he'd open up a portal to send the bullets elsewhere, as well as opening one beneath Shigaraki, sending him back to the hideout. Kurogiri would soon retreat alongside Shigaraki, with all the heroes there being extremely happy. All Might wouldn't be steaming at this point, as he'd rush over to where Izuku was. He'd known Izuku since he was since he was at least, I don't know what, 14? Izuku now, he'd known this boy. He knows Melissa deeply cared for him, and so did All Might. This is the boy that helped him with his injury. As he'd quickly pick up the boy, Izuku, as he'd run. The other students, as well as Raven, would be shocked at this, seeing that All Might did this. All Might was running at high speeds as he'd quickly jump through the air. He'd jump through the air back to UA. He'd end up smashing through Recovery Girl's wall as she'd tell him, "What the hell do you think you're doing, Toshinori?" As Toshinori would quickly turn around, showing her that Izuku was heavily injured. He didn't sustain much damage, but he was bleeding from a couple of spots. He had fractured bones, a couple of broken ribs from the impact into the wall, as well as he was out cold. His breath was coming through steady but weak. His heart wasn't beating fast at all. It was at least 20 beats per minute. Recovery Girl was shocked as she quickly got to work. She tried her best to heal Izuku to the best of her capabilities, but the boy's stamina was really drained. She got him out of critical condition but wasn't sure how long it would take him to wake up. Izuku had taken a rest. Izuku would be out for the next 5 hours. In that 5 hours, Raven would have come over, as well as All Might sitting by his side. Toshinori sitting by his side, Recovery Girl being present at all times to make sure that she could get the boy as much treatment as possible. So the 5 hours would pass, and Izuku's eyes would start to open. Toshinori would be extremely happy to see this, as well as Raven, who would jump onto Izuku, giving him a hug, telling him, "Don't you ever scare me like that again." Izuku would look at her and ask, "What's wrong?" As Raven would look at him and tell him that it was stupid what he did. He knew he couldn't beat the beast on his own, and yet he still tried. Izuku looked at her as he said, "I might not have a quirk, but that doesn't mean I can't be a hero. Unlike Bakugo, I wasn't planning on being a hero." Like All Might, I was planning on being a hero behind the scenes, one that would help the heroes. As he'd cough up a bit of blood, Raven would immediately back off, realizing that she jumped on him and that could have caused the wound to open again. Recovery Girl would have then attempted to kiss Izuku, as Izuku would tell her, "No, if you kiss me again, then all my stamina will be drained and I'll end up passing out again." As he would have slowly sat up with the help from Toshinori, he would look at Raven and tell her that I did what I had to do to protect my friends. Even if I don't know them as well, you were there, Bakugo was there, and there was a bunch of other kids that couldn't do much. I did my best, and that's what a hero's supposed to do. To do their best to try to protect those that can't protect themselves. All Might would have heard these words as he would have been extremely happy and proud of Izuku, as he would end up looking at Izuku and giving him a hug, as he would say, "Well said, my boy, but now you must rest." As he would close his eyes and lean his head back against the pillow, as Recovery Girl would kiss him once more, reactivating her quirk and healing Deku. Immediately afterwards, after the kiss, Deku would pass out, with Raven pondering what he said. All Might had wasted no time after Izuku woke up to call David, as he told him what happened. David and Melissa would be extremely shocked, well, extremely shocked and scared at the same time, seeing as Izuku was like a little brother to Melissa, and David didn't plan on losing one of his prides. Sorry, guys. I know I shouldn't have done that, but I was just checking up our power. My Wi-Fi came back on because, yay, South Africa, power's out because of flipping, I don't even know what. But anyway, Melissa didn't want to lose her brother figure, and David didn't want to lose one of his star students, the prodigy that helped him save his best friend. Izuku still had so much to do, so much to grasp, and David wasn't ready to lose him. David told Melissa to pack up as many of Izuku's different kinds of nanotechnology as possible, as she would have decided that she would store all of them in the small containers that Izuku had mass produced. It's a container that could seal multiple different nanotechnology by shrinking them to an even smaller molecular compound, as when you open it, the nanotechnology would pour out instantaneously. She would have grabbed at least five of each type. Five of the five types, I think. So it's vehicle, then you got healing, then you've got quirk cancelling. Then what else is there? Can't remember all of them. Don't hate me for this, but anyway, Melissa would have grabbed them as she would have gone off with David on a plane straight to UA. They would have arrived in about half an hour's time, seeing as it was a private jet that David owned. They would have arrived in the mainland in half an hour and made it to UA in less than 10 minutes. David would have immediately stormed through the halls of UA, making it straight to Recovery Girl's office. The students would have been shocked at what the hell was going on, as well as the teachers, seeing as David didn't utter a single word. He just kicked out open the UA front doors as he stormed through the halls, with Melissa following suit, carrying cases. These cases being Izuku's nanotechnology. The Titans would have come along as well, wondering what happened, because Melissa and David didn't say a single word. They would have walked through the halls following David and Melissa, as they would have reached the nurse's office. David would have immediately opened the door, and Melissa would follow through, as well as the Titans. The Titans would have seen that Izuku's in a bad state, as Raven would have just sat there beside him with a little bit of dust on her cloak. The Titans would immediately ask Raven what happened, as Raven explained to them, with David and Melissa listening as well while working. Melissa had immediately pulled out the medical pod that the medical pod of nanotechnology that Izuku had created. She would have immediately inserted some of it to the IV bag, as the nanotechnology would be traveling through the IV bag into Izuku's bloodstream. It would immediately start fixing up his bones, as well as any other muscle injuries, Izuku would Izuku's body would contort and compulse as he would be twitching on the bed rigorously with the nanotechnology quickly repairing his body. Shortly afterwards, from the IV drip, the nanotechnology would emerge once more. It would have been spewing out of Izuku right now, as multiple of them would be going back into the case. These would have been sent to Izuku personally to his medical care. Ooh, 20 minutes already. God damn. Anyway, David would have booked a hotel for the Titans, him and Melissa, and Izuku would have stayed with Recovery Girl for the night. The next day, Izuku would have woken up feeling much better and stronger than before, as he'd jump out of Recovery Girl's bed, still wearing the clothes that he did underneath the nanotechnology suit, but the clothes were in tatters. They were damaged, really damaged. But Izuku didn't really care much. He then would have walked out of Recovery Girl's office. My English is screwing with me. I hate it. But anyway, Izuku would have walked out of Recovery Girl's office as he would have seen a sleeping Bakugo. He would have woken Bakugo up as Bakugo would have shouted, "Deku!" as he would have tackled him to the ground, giving Izuku a tight hug. Izuku would have been shocked at this, seeing as he never picked Kachan to be the emotional type. But this is when Kachan would smack him not smack him across the face. Kachan would punch him in the face as he'd tell him, "Don't you ever do that again! Do you understand me, Deku?" As Izuku would look at him, smiling, saying, "No promises, Kachan." Bakugo would smile, seeing that Deku's fine and he's cheerful as always, as he'd just take Izuku and tell him that, "Yeah, whatever." As he'd help up Izuku. Izuku would be walking through the halls with Bakugo when Melissa and David would have would have turned the corner. Melissa would have seen Izuku as she'd immediately run up and hug him, quite tightly, I might add, as she would have tackled him to the ground as well. Bakugo yelling at him, "See, I'm not the only one that was worried." As Izuku would just smile, saying, "I'm fine, Melissa, don't worry." As Melissa this time would have slapped him, as she'd tell him, "Be more careful. You knew that nanotechnology was experimental. If it hadn't overheated, it could have exploded, causing both your death and maybe some of your friends." As Izuku told her that actually he worked out the explosion kink earlier. The only problem now was it overheating because of the massive power surge that was running through it. Melissa would then look at him and say, "But you still could have burned to death." As Izuku would have gotten up and told her that no, he would have been fine. And if anything, he had the medical nanobots. As Melissa said, "No, you didn't." As Izuku would have looked at her weirdly, asking, "What the hell do you mean?" As she said, "You forgot to grab your medical nanotechnology pod. Recovery Girl was busy healing you up until I got here with said medical nanotechnology pod." Izuku would have been awestruck at this, wondering how he could have forgotten such an important part of his suit. As he would have just chuckled, saying, "It doesn't matter now." As Melissa would have smacked him over the head, with David telling him that he wasn't planning on losing a student this early, so Izuku should be much more careful, seeing as he was one of his prized students, and also like a brother to Melissa. As Izuku would say, "I understand, Mr. Shield." This is when David will also look at Izuku and tell him that he's actually been going out with Inko and he's planning on getting married to her. Izuku would have been shocked at this, but Melissa had already known. And this kinda ticked off Deku, saying that, "And when were you planning on telling me?" As David said, "The moment you got back, but then we heard about the USJ, and that's when Inko would storm in through, will be bursting through the hall, seeing as she hadn't gotten all fat and depressed, I'm pretty sure," I said. "But if I did she say she got fat and depressed? No, she didn't. She's still slender, skinny, and beautiful looking Inko." She would turn the corner as she as well would tackle Izuku, as Izuku would say, "Not again." Because this is the third time he had been tackled to the ground by somebody, And this is when he would hug his mom, telling him that it's okay. But instead of a slap or a punch this time, Inko would have grabbed Izuku by the ear and told him that he should never do anything stupid like that again. He is quirkless after all, and he can't. And if he's stuck in a sticky situation like that, the technology can only help him so much. And Izuku would say like, "Ow, ow, 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 ow. Okay, 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 I'll think about it next time." As Inko would have stopped, but then realized that he said he'll think about it. As she'd pull his ear again, saying, "Okay, okay, 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 fine, 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 fine. It won't happen again, I swear, I swear." As Inko would let go of his ear this time. Again. As Izuku would be sitting on the floor holding his ear with David and Melissa laughing. As Izuku would then look over at his mother and ask him, "When were you planning on telling me?" As Inko would ask, "What do you mean?" As he would tell, as Izuku would tell Inko about the marriage. As Inko would look at David, and David would look at her, saying that he almost died. It's better he knows now than him never knowing at all. As Inko would have told Izuku that she's a big girl and she can make decisions of her own. As Izuku would tell her, "I know, and I don't mind that you're going out with Mr. Shield, but I would have at least liked to know." This is when Inko would look down and look at Izuku, saying that, "So you aren't against it," as Izuku would say. "No, I'm not against it. I just would have liked to know." This would have surprised Inko, as well as David, wondering, what the hell, why didn't they tell this child earlier? Melissa would then say that she knew Izuku would react this way, seeing as he doesn't really care as long as his mother has a good husband. Somebody that will actually look after her when he's not there. As David would look at it, Inko, as he'd say, "Yeah, I try my best to do that." Izuku would have then told them that, "Yeah, see, here's the thing. If this is happening, I want to know next time. Anything big comes up, I'm the first to know." As Melissa would have looked at him saying, "I'm older," as Izuku would say, "My mom's my mom." Seeing as Melissa would then chuckle, seeing as, well, she can't disagree with that, but that's still the thing. Izuku would then congratulate his mother and David as he would walk off. He would just exit the door of UA with Melissa, Bakugo, Mr. and now Mrs. Shield, just before he would collapse onto the ground. This is when, he'd not collapse onto the ground, he'd fall over onto his knees as Bakugo and Melissa would quickly run up, with David and Inko following close behind. Izuku would then immediately start spewing blood from his mouth, not large amounts, but just still blood in general from his mouth, as parts of the nanotechnology would have come out as well. Well, not parts, just like 2 or 3 nanobots would have come out as well. They would have immediately dragged him back to Recovery Girl's office, as Recovery Girl would do a scan, and then she would realize that the nanotechnology did help, but it ran out of power before it could finish up all of his wounds. There is still some internal damage, and Izuku would have to stay for another 2 hours, which annoyed Izuku as he just sat back in the bed, and Recovery Girl proceeded to treat him. About half an hour would pass before the Titans would arrive back, and they would be walking through the halls with the UA students wondering who the hell they are. As they would see, as Bakugo would be waiting outside, as he would see Raven and Raven would ask, "What's wrong? Shouldn't he have been discharged by now?" This is when Bakugo would say that no, he ended up spewing blood from his mouth again just shortly after leaving the UA's front door. As Raven would have looked extremely concerned at this, which shocked the Titans, as she would ask, "What the hell was wrong then? Didn't his nanotechnology work?" Bakugo would then say, "It did, but it ran out of juice just before it could finish healing up everything. He's back inside with Recovery Girl, recovering again." As Bakugo would have just sat there, the Titans would have as well taken a seat in the outside Recovery Girl's, basically recovering studio, because I don't even know what the hell that you call that, man, like the nurse's office. It ain't even a nurse's office. It's just like 2 beds and then recovery girl with a desk. That's it. So anyway, the door would open. Melissa, David, and Inko would walk out as they tell them that Izuku's gonna need some time to pick up a lot of stamina. As the Titans would have walked inside and they would have seen that Izuku was, well, panting. It looked like he ran a marathon. As Robin, or Damien, would look at him and say, "Wow, are you okay?" Izuku would reply with, "I'm fine. Thanks for asking." As Raven would have then said, "No, you're not fine. You almost bloody died." As Izuku would have looked at her, saying that, "No, I'm fine." Beast Boy, Cyborg, and Starfire would have been confused, wondering why Raven was so stressed out, as Starfire would end up teasing Raven about this a little later. Cyborg would have then run an additional x-ray, as he would have said that Izuku's internal injury seems to be at a minimum, but there's still a chance of them opening again. There's a 1 out of 10 chance of them opening again, so it's best to make sure that he gets another dose of whatever recovery girl was giving him. As Booster Boy would chip in saying, "Yeah, man, you're one of the coolest people I know. I don't need to lose a friend. Not again." As Beast Boy would sling his arm around Izuku. Izuku would smile as he'd say, "I'm not planning on dying so soon." As he would have gotten up, and Cyborg would have said, "Nah, bruh, you gotta sit down. Beast Boy's right. We don't need to lose another friend." As Izuku would have said, "But you won't lose another friend. I'll be fine." As he would have fallen over onto his knees because of exhaustion. Cyborg would pick him up, put him back in the bed, and say, "You're resting, little buddy, no matter how hard you try." Robin would have told him that, "Yeah, I agree." As Robin would quickly hit Izuku in a few pressure points, and Izuku would realize that, "Crap, I can't move my body. What's going on? I can't move my body." This is when Robin would say, "I know. I made sure you couldn't move your body by hitting a bunch of pressure points, which would cause your body to go limp for at least 2 hours." Izuku would have been visibly annoyed at this, as the nanotechnology suit reactor, which he had implanted in his neck, would then activate. Melissa would have realized this, as the suit she had with her would have vibrated at an enormous pace. It would have been vibrating heavily, as out of nowhere the case would flip open, and the nanotechnology would be pouring out. It would then go underneath Recovery Girl's door, straight to Izuku, as it would wrap him up in basically a Spider-Man suit without the mask. As he would get up off of the floor, off of the bed, and he would start walking, as he'd tell Robin, "You might have paralyzed my body, but I've got technology to work with me." As he would walk to the door with a black suit, and he would just be walking through, as he tell them that he's hungry and he wants something to eat. So he would basically just take some of the cash that he had saved up, as he would be walking, with the rest of them being Bakugo, the Titans, Melissa, Shield, Mr. and Mrs. Shield, and them following all, going to a restaurant, and then enjoying a meal. And I'm signing out. Peace.